Penn Badgley has finally spoken publicly about something that Hollywood insiders have reportedly whispered about for years. His recent comments about working alongside Blake Lively on Gossip Girl have reignited old conversations and left many fans looking at their past on-screen partnership in a completely new way. What makes the story even more intriguing is that when his remarks are compared with statements Blake Lively herself made back in 2009, a much bigger picture begins to emerge. Together, these comments have fueled speculation about her personality, the choices she made during that era, and the motivations behind some of her actions. Whether these revelations truly change the public's perception or simply add more context to a long-running narrative, they have certainly sparked a fresh wave of debate.
You were dating Blake Lively, you were dating Serena on the show. Did you feel like you were able to separate your actual job from your reality and actually able to grow in your 20s, or did it all feel like it was kind of merged?
I mean, that's a great question because it was
In a 2009 magazine interview, Blake Lively opened up about her early days on Gossip Girl and her first impressions of co-star Penn Badgley. Instead of offering the kind of polished Hollywood response fans might have expected, she recalled, "At first, I was so upset that they hired him. I actually poisoned the whole cast against him." The candid remark immediately caught attention because it painted a very different picture of the show's behind-the-scenes dynamic. According to Lively, she wasn't happy about the casting decision and struggled with the fact that she had no say in who would play opposite her. Over the years, that interview has resurfaced repeatedly as people debate whether it reflected simple frustration, youthful honesty, or something more. Critics have pointed to the comment as an example of what they see as a sense of entitlement, while others argue it was an immature remark made early in her career. The discussion has also fueled broader conversations about privilege in Hollywood, with some labeling Lively a Nepo baby because of her family's long-standing ties to the entertainment industry. Whether that label is fair remains a matter of opinion, but her own words from that interview continue to be referenced whenever questions about her reputation and career are brought up.
You need that. You need that for the entertainment and the grit. But this stuff does happen, and it's good because we do address these issues. It does open the door for conversation.
Many critics argue that Blake Lively benefited from opportunities that came with her industry connections rather than having to prove herself the hard way. Whether that perception is fair or not, it has remained part of the conversation surrounding her career for years. But the more important part of the story isn't the label. It's what reportedly happened after those early casting tensions on Gossip Girl. Although Blake and Penn Badgley eventually developed a much better working relationship, some believe the first impression had already shaped the atmosphere behind the scenes. If the cast had been influenced by those early opinions, as Blake herself once suggested, then Penn may have spent a significant amount of time working in an environment where he was viewed through a negative lens before people had the chance to form their own opinions. Whether that early tension had any lasting impact is impossible to know for certain, but it adds another layer to the story now that Penn has spoken publicly about his experience. Looking back, those old comments carry a different weight and have sparked fresh debate about what was really happening behind the cameras during the early years of the hit series.
The point is not about Gossip Girl. The point is, about the time I was 20, I was feeling real disillusioned and dried up and tired of being in Hollywood, of acting.
For some critics, Blake Lively's 2009 interview has become a reference point they use to interpret later events in her career. They argue that once you look back at those early comments, they believe they see a recurring pattern in the way she has handled certain professional relationships. However, it's important to note that these are interpretations and allegations rather than established facts. According to this viewpoint, the pattern begins when she finds herself working with someone who is already well-liked or influential. Critics claim she then creates tension, shares negative opinions with others, and allows those conflicts to grow over time. They argue that this cycle continues until the working relationship changes or the situation comes to an end. Supporters of this theory often point to both her reported early interactions with Penn Badgley and the more recent public dispute involving Justin Baldoni as examples. Whether those situations are truly connected remains a matter of public debate, but the comparisons have fueled renewed discussion about Blake Lively's professional reputation and the way she has navigated conflicts throughout her career.
Also had a very long and difficult relationship in my teen years. that marked me. And I actually remember thinking when I got out of it at 19, I was just like, that was a way to start it all. Oof. I wonder what effects it's going to have.
What has unfolded recently has certainly reignited interest in Penn Badgley's time on Gossip Girl. After years of speaking only occasionally about that chapter of his career, his more recent comments have led many fans to revisit old interviews and behind-the-scenes stories. Some believe his perspective adds new context to long-standing rumors about the working environment on the show, while others caution against drawing conclusions from limited public statements. For years, viewers noticed that Penn often appeared reserved whenever Gossip Girl was brought up in interviews. His answers were typically thoughtful but somewhat guarded, leading fans to wonder whether there was more to the story than what had been shared publicly. His recent remarks have only intensified that curiosity, prompting renewed discussion about what those years were really like behind the scenes. Some commentators now argue that Penn's experience helps explain why he has always seemed reluctant to revisit that period of his career. However, while people have interpreted his comments as validating certain criticisms of Blake Lively, it is important to recognize that the full details of their working relationship remain known only to those directly involved. What is clear is that the renewed attention has reopened a conversation that many believed had been left in the past.
Since I didn't like dating was because of what it seemed like, young men, boys, men need to sort of, how they need to behave and act, which always felt real corrosive and toxic and coarse and just callous.
Penn Badgley's recent comments have prompted some commentators to draw comparisons between his experience working with Blake Lively on Gossip Girl and Blake Lively's much more recent legal dispute with Justin Baldoni. These comparisons are interpretations made by observers, not established facts. Penn has spoken about challenges from that period of his career, but he has not publicly confirmed many of the broader claims circulating online. Supporters of this theory argue that the situations share similar themes, claiming Blake had conflicts with male co-stars she allegedly did not initially get along with. They point to her 2009 interview about Penn and compare it with a public controversy involving Baldoni, suggesting there is a recurring pattern in how professional disagreements unfolded. Others strongly dispute that characterization, noting that the circumstances surrounding the two situations are very different and remain the subject of public debate. The discussion became even more intense when an online petition surfaced during the height of the legal battle involving Justin Baldoni. The petition called for Baldoni to face professional consequences within industry organizations, leading many people to speculate about who had created it. What caught the internet's attention was that the petition was reportedly filed under the name Guinevere Beck, often shortened to Beck, the fictional character portrayed opposite Penn Badgley's character in the Netflix series You. That detail sparked widespread online speculation, with many wondering whether the choice of name carried a hidden message. However, there is no verified public evidence linking the pseudonym to Blake Lively or anyone involved in the dispute, and the identity of the person behind the petition has not been established. According to some online reports and speculation, a person allegedly connected to Blake Lively's team used the name of a fictional character from You when creating a petition targeting Justin Baldoni. That claim, however, has not been publicly verified, and there is no confirmed evidence linking the petition to Blake Lively or her representatives. Even so, the unusual choice of name quickly caught the attention of fans, especially because it referenced a character from the series starring Penn Badgley. As a result, many people began searching for a deeper meaning behind the reference and questioning whether it was intended to send a symbolic message. Those who support this theory argue that the reference was more than a coincidence, claiming it reflected the way Blake's critics believe she approaches professional conflicts. They suggest that both Penn Badgley and Justin Baldoni became central figures in public controversies involving Blake, leading some observers to compare the two situations. Others, however, reject that interpretation and caution against drawing conclusions from an anonymous online petition whose creator has never been identified. Supporters of the comparison also point out that Penn and Justin share certain similarities. They are both actors with comparable public personas and have spoken openly about social issues during their careers. Because of those similarities, some commentators believe the public naturally drew parallels between the two situations. At the same time, there is no public evidence establishing that Blake viewed either man in the way these theories suggest. For many fans, Penn Badgley's recent willingness to revisit his Gossip Girl experience has been one of the biggest talking points. Some believe that speaking more openly has allowed him to provide additional context about a chapter of his career that he rarely discussed in detail. However, any claims about his personal feelings toward Blake Lively or suggestions that recent events have validated his experience remain matters of interpretation rather than confirmed fact.
Actually got a good look at Blake Lively.
No, I wouldn't recognize her in the street.
Just a blur.
The conversations surrounding the Gossip Girl set were not limited to Penn Badgley. Over the years, rumors and media reports have also focused on Blake Lively's relationship with her co-star Leighton Meester, who portrayed Blair Waldorf. Although Serena and Blair were inseparable on screen, several people involved with the series have said the actresses were never particularly close off camera. Executive producer Joshua Safran has publicly stated that they maintained a professional relationship rather than a close friendship, but he has not described the set as being defined by the more serious allegations that are often repeated online. Reports from entertainment media have long suggested that Lively and Meester largely kept to themselves when they were not filming scenes together. If true, that would not necessarily be unusual on a long-running television production, where co-stars can maintain cordial working relationships without becoming close friends. While fans have often interpreted the distance between them as evidence of personal conflict, neither actress has publicly confirmed many of the claims that continue to circulate. Joshua Safran has also shared that Penn Badgley and Blake Lively kept much of their real-life relationship private during the show's early years, and that many people working on the series did not immediately know when the couple had ended their relationship. Their decision to keep those details out of the spotlight reflected a desire for privacy rather than proof of any broader behind-the-scenes agenda. As with many high-profile television productions, separating personal lives from professional responsibilities was likely a priority. In recent years, some commentators have drawn comparisons between the Gossip Girl set and the public dispute surrounding It Ends With Us. They argue that similar dynamics existed in both situations, but those comparisons remain opinions rather than established facts. While both productions have generated significant public discussion, many of the stronger claims circulating online have not been independently verified, making it important to distinguish between documented statements and speculation.
Constantly needing to prove yourself in some manner. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Penn Badgley and Blake Lively's real-life romance became one of the biggest talking points during the height of Gossip Girl. Because they were also playing an on-screen couple, their relationship generated enormous media attention and became part of the show's appeal. However, in later interviews, Penn has spoken candidly about how difficult it was to separate his personal life from his character, explaining that the line between being himself and playing Dan Humphrey often felt blurred. He has described that period as emotionally overwhelming, especially while adjusting to sudden fame and constant public attention.
Trying to process this reality of what somebody's doing. Like this is awful. Awful. Yeah. Worst of humanity, really.
One of the most talked about aspects of Penn Badgley and Blake Lively's relationship is that, after they broke up, they continued working together on Gossip Girl, while keeping the breakup private for a period of time. According to executive producer Joshua Safran, many people on the cast and crew did not immediately know the relationship had ended, allowing production to continue without major disruptions. While some critics have interpreted that decision as an effort to protect public image, there is no public evidence that Blake alone made the decision or required the secrecy. It is equally possible that both actors chose to keep their personal lives separate from the workplace. In recent years, some commentators have argued that Penn's willingness to discuss that period has encouraged people to re-examine Blake Lively's public image and compare past events with more recent controversies. Others caution that such comparisons remain interpretations rather than established facts. While fans continue to debate whether these separate incidents reveal a broader pattern, no public evidence conclusively proves the claims often made in online discussions. What is clear is that the story continues to generate attention because it combines a highly public relationship, a successful television series, and years of speculation about what really happened behind the scenes.
It's taking the same sort of formula
but then inverting it and making it evil.
Many commentators believe that Penn Badgley's recent reflections have encouraged the public to revisit long-standing discussions about Blake Lively and her reputation in Hollywood. While stories and rumors about difficult working relationships have circulated for years, they have often remained unverified and subject to debate. Penn's comments have prompted fans to re-examine those earlier reports, but they do not by themselves confirm the broader claims that have been made about Blake. Supporters of this perspective argue that Penn occupies a unique position in the conversation because he worked alongside Blake during the earliest years of her career and also shared a real-life relationship with her. As a result, many people view his perspective as more significant than anonymous rumors or secondhand accounts. At the same time, Penn has generally spoken about his experiences in measured and nuanced terms rather than making sweeping accusations, and it is important not to overstate what he has publicly said. Some observers believe that his willingness to discuss that period has made people more receptive to other stories involving Blake Lively, while others argue that each situation should be evaluated on its own evidence rather than linked together. Ultimately, Penn's comments have reignited public interest in a chapter of Hollywood history that many thought had been left behind, but the broader conclusions being drawn about Blake Lively remain matters of interpretation rather than established fact. Back in 2009, Blake Lively gave an interview in which she recalled that she had initially reacted negatively to Penn Badgley's casting, joking that she had poisoned the whole cast against him. At the time, many readers viewed the remark as an offhand comment from a young actress and did not attach much significance to it. Years later, however, that interview resurfaced as people began revisiting old stories in light of more recent controversies involving Blake. Critics argued that her own words took on a different meaning, while others maintained that the comment should be understood in the context in which it was originally made. A.S. Blake became involved in a highly publicized legal dispute with Justin Baldoni. Online commentators started drawing connections between the old interview and the new controversy. Those comparisons remain matters of public opinion, and many of the allegations circulating online, including claims involving shell companies, extortion, or blackmail, have not been established as fact and are disputed as part of ongoing legal proceedings. For that reason, they should not be presented as proven events. What is undeniable is that Blake's public image has faced intense scrutiny. A remark that once received little attention has become one of the most frequently quoted moments from her early career, with critics arguing that it reflected an attitude they believe has appeared in later controversies. Supporters, however, contend that isolated comments and disputed allegations should not be used to define a person's entire character. The broader story ultimately serves as a reminder of how public perception can change over time. Statements that once seemed insignificant can be re-examined years later through the lens of new events, often leading to very different interpretations. Whether Blake Lively's reputation recovers will depend not on internet speculation but on verified facts, the outcomes of any legal proceedings, and how the public ultimately chooses to interpret the evidence as it becomes available.